Hello, thanks for stopping by. Please relax, have a seat, as today we go through Hell in a Cell. No, not the title of some twisted Dr. Seuss book, but the go-to stipulation for any WWE feud worth its salt. When I was a kid, nothing got me more excited for a pay-per-view than hearing those words inside Hell in a Cell during a promo.
Hell in the Cell!
Oh my God! Oh my God! Triple H!
Oh my. That match is called Hell in the Cell!
Oh my God!
Hell in the Cell!
Oh my!
Though after 2008, the excitement died down a bit once the PG era began, resulting in watered-down violence and no blood. The opposite ingredients you need for a great Hell in a Cell match. But I digress. The match involves a 16-foot, later 20-foot structure made out of chain link fencing and steel supports that surround a wrestling ring. Not much different from your classic wrestling cage that's been around for over half a century, but WWE, in their ultimate wisdom, decided to put a roof on top of the cage, something no other wrestling company has ever done before. The stipulation was a huge hit right off the bat after a 5-star performance between The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. But the match would really be cemented in history after The Undertaker took on Mankind at the King of the Ring in 1998. It became the place the most personal of rivalries were finished once and for all. Normally. It's no wonder that McIntyre and Punk will finally settle things in the Devil's Playground after a year of being at each other's throats. There's been 52 Hell in a Cell matches at the time of this recording. Let's take a look back at the ones with the most bad blood between the superstars who walked through hell together. But first, I want you to grab that like button. I want you to press its face against the steel mesh and grind it in there like a cheese grater. And then I want you to set your sights on that SOB subscribe button. And I want you to spear him through the cell wall and spill the action out onto the arena floor. And stick around to the end of the list for a special honorable mention with a storyline you will not believe. Brock Lesnar versus The Undertaker, Hell in a Cell 2015. This was not the first time these two fought inside Hell in a Cell. 22 years ago, they mauled each other at no mercy in a very, very bloody match. Even Paul Heyman got color in this one. During the build, Lesnar would interfere with The Undertaker's match every week and broke his arm by smashing it with a propane tank. Heyman would get a bit close with Taker's pregnant wife in their dressing room and orchestrated a false story of The Undertaker having an affair with another woman, which his wife believed. I know it may be strange to some of you hearing about The Undertaker's personal life, but you gotta remember at this time he wasn't the dead man we all know and love, but the Kid Rock blaring, motorcycle riding, tobacco chewing, walking midlife crisis. But I would be lying if I said he wasn't still my favorite wrestler at the time. But even with all the horrible things Heyman and Lesnar did to The Undertaker, nothing would compare to what they did to him 12 years later. And the unspeakable happened. Brock Lesnar defeated The Undertaker's 21-0 WrestleMania streak.
Game over, man. It's game over.
You can break his hand. You can tell his wife he's an adulterer. But don't you dare mess with the greatest kayfabe accomplishment in the history of sports entertainment. If it wasn't personal before, it sure was now. Waiting over an entire year later, Taker served a portion of ice cold revenge at Battleground 2015. Lesnar was just about to pin Seth Rollins for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship when the lights went out. The Undertaker laid out Lesnar with a chokeslam, 2 tombstones, and a kick to 2 other type of stones. In all the times Undertaker faced Lesnar, he had never won until SummerSlam the next month, be it a bit controversial. The ref did not see that Undertaker tapped out while in the Kimura lock. The timekeeper rang the bell thinking the match was over. Brock let go of the hold believing he had won, only for Taker to give Brock another low blow and put Lesnar in the Hell's Gate submission hold, resulting in the Beast passing out. Finally chalking one up for the dead man. Technically. It was finally time to settle things, and this time, in Hell in a Cell. At the Staples Center in LA, the same arena where Lesnar and Taker had their first match together. The two battled, in my opinion, the better of their two Hell in a Cell matches. Both men even bled during the match, which in 2015 was unheard of. After a missed throw of the steel steps caused damage to the ring, Lesnar tore off the canvas and ripped out the mat, exposing the wooden beams under the ring. But a tombstone on the wood wasn't enough for the Undertaker to gain the victory. Lesnar countered with a low blow, payback of his own, and an F5 on the beams to finish off the Undertaker for good. For more on these guys' incredible feud, stick around to this channel. Undertaker versus Triple H, WrestleMania 28. I already mentioned as a kid, Hell in a Cell was my favorite stipulation. Seeing one live was always a dream of mine. I almost got it in 2007 when I went to Cyber Sunday. The original plan was to have John Cena versus Randy Orton, with 3 choices of matches the fans could vote on to see what they wanted. Hell in a Cell was one of those options, and of course Hell in a Cell was going to win the vote. I looked everywhere online, but I can't find them. There were local commercials promoting the event, showing that match was booked. But cards subject to change came into play, and John Cena tore his pectoral muscle in a match with Mr. Bad Luck, Mr. Kennedy. My dream was shattered. 5 years later, I had my ticket for WrestleMania 28. Then on a Monday night during the build-up to the show, Triple H and Undertaker were performing a promo to build their match. A rematch from Mania 27 and 17, but we're not supposed to talk about that one for some reason. Triple H uttered, "We do this, we go all the way. I will face you at WrestleMania under one condition. Hell in a Cell." I marked out more than my little Mark Hart could take. Not only was I going to see a Cell match live, but it was against the two masters of the stipulation. No one else has been in as many Hell in a Cell matches than Undertaker and Triple H. It was truly a match to end an era. Whatever that means. And the match did not disappoint. But I'm getting ahead of myself. This all started at WrestleMania 25 when Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker put on the greatest wrestling match of all time. HBK had the nickname Mr. WrestleMania for always giving the best performance at the show. Undertaker was the man who couldn't be defeated at WrestleMania. It was only a matter of time these two would go at it at the show of shows. Taker ended up extending his streak and defeating Michaels. This ate away at the Heartbreak Kid. He became obsessed with ending the streak and cementing his place as the top guy at WrestleMania. Shawn begged The Undertaker for a rematch at WrestleMania 26, but Taker declined. Michaels tried everything to get the match, but Taker refused. Finally snapping, HBK interfered in an Elimination Chamber match where Undertaker was defending his title, causing him to lose the belt. Shawn now had Taker's attention, but the dead man would only take the match under one stipulation. Shawn had to put his career on the line. A desperate HBK accepted and lost, forcing Shawn to retire. 1 year later, when The Undertaker made his return on the February 2nd edition of Raw, Triple H, the best friend of Shawn Michaels, interrupted Taker's return and without a single word challenged the Phenom to a match at WrestleMania 27. In the build-up, Triple H would say between the two, the last true accomplishment of their respective careers would be one of them defeating the other.
I'm the only true challenge you've got left, dead man.
The match itself was the only saving grace on a terrible WrestleMania. In a very stiff match, The Undertaker would win, but he couldn't walk out of the match on his own, showing that the dead man was growing vulnerable. Like Michaels before him, something was eating away at The Undertaker. He won the match, but not by much. He had to prove to himself and the world that he could beat Triple H and stand tall at the end. Taker challenged Triple H to a rematch at the next WrestleMania. This time, it was Triple H who denied him. It was The Undertaker's turn to feel the desperation for a rematch. I liked the storyline. It was a good idea. What I didn't like was The Undertaker cutting his hair in a strange attempt to get Triple H to accept the match. At least I think that's what happened.
Bruh.
After teasing Triple H that Shawn Michaels may be better than him,
Shawn was always better than you.
Triple H finally agreed to the match, as long as if it was Hell in a Cell. And out of the blue, Shawn Michaels was made the special guest referee. A great story, 3 years in the making. The man Undertaker retired, the man who is the best friends with his opponent, was the man who was going to count the pinfall. Dramatic, tension, overload. This match was so big even the Cell had entrance music. Lower into Metallica's The Memory Remains. Seeing this live was an incredible experience, but there was a lot of details that was missed unless you were watching on TV. The little facial expressions HBK was making as he fought with the idea of calling it down the middle or screwing over The Undertaker. Or the conversation between Triple H and HBK that can only be picked up on camera. Much like the year before, this match was really stiff. The chair shots from Triple H looked absolutely brutal. The highlight of the match was the awesome Sweet Chin Music pedigree combo that only got a 2 count. My friend's girlfriend took this picture right at that moment. HBK's reaction of, "I can't believe what I just did, and I can't believe that guy just survived it," as he sunk into the corner of the ring, was brilliant. After Taker finally pinned Triple H, HBK counted the pin. This time it was Triple H who needed help to the back, but he was supported by Taker and HBK as the three left the stadium to a standing ovation. It truly was an end of an era, or something. Edge versus Finn Balor, WrestleMania 39, Night 2. Adam Copeland, better known to the WWE Universe as Edge, had his 19-year career come to a shocking end in 2011 after he was diagnosed with cervical spinal stenosis. Say that 3 times fast. Cervical spinal stenosis. Cervical stenosis. Cervical spinal stenosis. The WWE doctors would not clear him to wrestle to avoid risk of paralysis or even death, forcing the WWE legend to retire and vacate his World Heavyweight Championship after his last title defense against Alberto Del Rio. Throughout the next decade, Edge would make appearances here and there on WWE TV and promos, including being inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2012. But the place he really wanted to be was under those hot lights, putting on a show for a crowd. But that seemed like a pipe dream. Until SummerSlam 2019, when Edge would make an appearance, but this time, he hit his signature spear on Elias. A physical move. What could that mean? Yes, at the next Royal Rumble event, Edge made a shocking return at number 21. Adam Copeland was back for another run. In the next 2 years, he would feud with Randy Orton, resulting in a last man standing match that I'm pretty certain is still going on at this moment. Winning the 2021 Royal Rumble and main event in WrestleMania. He even had a Hell in a Cell match against Seth Rollins that was close to making this list, seeing as Rollins became a home invader during the build. But this entry isn't about that Cell match. For that match, we have to jump forward to 2022. At WrestleMania during Edge's match with AJ Styles, Damian Priest appeared to distract AJ causing Edge to hit a spear for the win. The next night, we learned that this was a new faction called Judgment Day. Not long after, Rhea Ripley joined the crew. Edge was gathering young superstars to take under his wing and to teach the ways of becoming an ultimate opportunist. What better way to spend the twilight of his career? The three took on the likes of AJ Styles, Liv Morgan, and Finn Balor, which made it such a surprise when Edge announced the new member of the group was Finn Balor himself, whose team was defeated by the Judgment Day the night before at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. But out of the blue and almost immediately, the young superstars attacked the veteran, kicking him out of the stable that he created to help them. They were sick of being told what to do. This new version of the Judgment Day would have no single leader, but they would all run the group. To rub salt in the wound of Edge, the three went after his close friend Rey Mysterio and his son Dominic, trying to recruit Dominic to their ranks to get him out of the shadow of his father, not unlike them stepping out the shadow of Edge, which eventually he would at Clash of the Castle a couple months later, when he low-blowed Edge after his tag match against the Judgment Day and then clotheslined his own father. Edge would get his chance for revenge against the man who converted his followers at Extreme Rules when he faced Balor in an I Quit match. Edge would be the one to utter those dreaded words when Rhea Ripley threatened to hit Edge's wife, Beth Phoenix, with a concerto, which Rhea did anyway, obviously. Now with Beth Phoenix mixed up in the situation, husband and wife would team up against Balor and Rhea Ripley in a mixed tag match at Elimination Chamber, finally defeating the Judgment Day and ready to put them in the rearview mirror. But on Raw, during a United States title match against Austin Theory, Finn Balor would interfere to cost Edge the chance to win the title, then beat the Rated R superstar down after the match. It still wasn't over. The two were finally going to settle things at the Show of Shows at WrestleMania 39, inside Hell in a Cell. Both would enter the structure in theatrical ways, fitting for the Hollywood theme of that year's Mania. Edge ascended from a flame ring with a disco ball on his head, and Finn Balor returned to his demon persona, dancing in slow motion with some smoke sticks. They started with the weapons right away. An interesting choice was to have all the weapons a different color than they normally would be. There were red and purple chairs, kendo sticks, tables. It was different. It wasn't long into the match when Edge shoot through a ladder straight into Finn Balor's face. Just look at Edge's oops reaction. This busted Balor wide open. This was not meant to happen, and because WWE didn't want to upset the toy companies, the match was paused for medical to close up the wound. This killed the momentum of the match, and it never got a chance to be the classic it should have been. But Balor performing the coup de grace off the side of the cage into the ring was pretty awesome. The end came when Edge hit a concerto onto Finn, payback for what happened to his wife. It was a great build, but a so-so cell match. But at least it was much better than our next entry. Undertaker vs. Kane, Hell in a Cell 2010. A WWE tale as old as time. Undertaker vs. Kane, brother versus brother. The Brothers of Destruction implode. These two have been fighting each other since the 90s. In fact, the first time the audience ever seen Kane was when he debuted at the first Hell in a Cell to attack Undertaker, costing him the match. Since then, they fought in Mania matches, championship matches, Inferno matches, a Buried Alive match, but it wasn't until 2010 when the Devil's favorite demons fought each other in the Devil's Playground. If I were going to go through the entire history of this feud, we'd be here all night. So here's the speedrun version. Brothers Kane and Deadman? Mark? What is the Undertaker's canon name? Well, they were young when a fire killed their mother and father, Taker thought Kane was dead, but it turns out he was still alive, being raised by Paul Bearer, Undertaker's wrestling manager. Oh, but wait, turns out they weren't full brothers, they were half brothers. Kane is Paul Bearer's son. He was having an affair with Taker's mom. Kane comes to the WWE and wants to fight Taker. Taker won't fight his little brother. Kane locks Taker in a casket and sets it on fire. Now Taker fights him. Taker beats Kane at WrestleMania. Then they fight in a ring surrounded by fire. Then they partner up. Then Taker turns on Kane. They fight in a ring of fire again, only to team up again. But then Kane turns on Undertaker, leading to a match at SummerSlam. Following that, they teamed up again and won the WCW tag titles and the WWF tag titles twice. After parting ways for 3 years, Kane buried Undertaker alive. Taker does spooky magic shows towards Kane for a couple months. Taker returns and beats Kane again at WrestleMania. Kane randomly helps Undertaker win a casket match against Heidenreich, Michael Cole's secret lover. And you guessed it, they tagged again. This brings us up to speed in 2010. The Undertaker is found in a vegetative state. Kane vows to find the culprit. Oh, I wonder who it could be. He spent the next few weeks interrogating the locker room, even accusing Rey Mysterio of being the attacker. Sure. Kane even won the Money in the Bank and cashed in on Mysterio to win the World Heavyweight Championship. During their rematch at SummerSlam, The Undertaker returned going after Kane, showing the world it was Kane that put him in the vegetative state. Vegetative state. That has to be a Vince line. It just feels like it, like local medical facility. Kane gave a pretty great promo explaining that for the past 10 years, he had a secret plan to take out The Undertaker and make him weak, killing him by 1,000 cuts. It was now time to finally finish Taker off. Putting his title on the line, they would face off at 2010 Night of Champions. But Undertaker couldn't get his revenge. Kane defeated his brother, proving he was now on top. But he did not end The Undertaker like he planned. He would get his chance at that year's Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. 13 years after the last time they both were inside the structure. Unfortunately, this wasn't 1997 anymore, and these two were far from their prime. A very slow and plodding match. To be honest, there isn't much to say about this. It was an Undertaker vs. Kane 2010 house show match that just so happened to have a cell around it. The only notable thing that happened was Paul Bearer turning on The Undertaker and joining his son by blinding The Undertaker with the weakest excuse of a mystical light I've ever seen illuminating out of the urn. And then the next month, Undertaker was buried alive. Again. Triple H vs. Shawn Michaels, Bad Blood 2004. A WWE tale as old as time. Shawn Michaels versus Triple H. Best friend versus best friend. The DX brothers implode. These two have been fighting since the 90s. I think I'm having deja vu. They were the members of the infamous Clique, alongside Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. But once they ran off to where the big boys play, Shawn and Hunter formed Generation X, a brass juvenile group that pushed the limits with the television censors. They were another ingredient that led to the Attitude Era. Triple H and HBK changed the direction of wrestling together. They were ride or die. Then Shawn Michaels injured his back. Shawn retired from wrestling. Now Triple H had the opportunity to take the reins of DX and become the leader, after always playing second to HBK. Recruiting X-Pac, Road Dogg, Billy Gunn, along with Chyna, who was already in the group, he formed the DX Army. During this time, Triple H would not only win the WWE Championship, but would marry Stephanie McMahon, and the two would gain power over the WWE, becoming the McMahon and Helmsley era. Triple H not only equaled Shawn Michaels, he surpassed him. But in 2002, Shawn Michaels started showing up on WWE TV. Triple H worried he may be coming back, which could overshadow his career. The Game would attack Shawn in a parking lot, leading to a match at the 2002 SummerSlam. Michaels showed the world he still had it in a great contest, beating Triple H after a 4-year hiatus. But Triple H made sure he would pay for the victory by attacking Michaels with the sledgehammer after the match. Pulling a page out of The Undertaker's book, Shawn Michaels emerged from a casket to attack Triple H during his match against Kane. HBK would be one of the 6 competitors that would be in the first ever Elimination Chamber to try to win Triple H's World Heavyweight Championship. In only his second match after his return, HBK won the World Heavyweight Championship at Survivor Series. The game's biggest fear had come true. Throughout the next 2 years, they would fight in a last man standing match, ladder match, cage match, street fight, multiple tag matches, a WrestleMania triple threat. This feud seemed to never end. To finally put this all behind them and move on, they would enter Hell in a Cell at Bad Blood 2004. And boy, what an odyssey of a match. Coming in at 47 minutes. I know it needed to be an epic finale, but dang. The cell looked like a battleground with weapons scattered about a blood-stained canvas. Michaels was battered in this match, but was able to hit an elbow from the top of the ladder onto Triple H through a table. The fatigue that both men showed at the end of the match was great storytelling, showing that they would both fight until they pass out. Or maybe they were that tired, they were fighting for 47 minutes. But in the end, Triple H earned the victory after 3 pedigrees. Barely able to get his arm over Shawn's chest to get the 3 count. And they never wrestled again. Seth Rollins versus Dean Ambrose, Hell in a Cell 2014. Sierra, Hotel, India, Echo, Lima, Delta, Shield. The group that introduced the WWE Universe to Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, and of course, Roman Reigns. Fresh out of FCW and the newly created NXT, the Shield became a wrecking ball in the WWE, created instant stars in a time where WWE seemed to forget how to make stars. Starting as a Shield, their namesake, for CM Punk, orchestrated by his manager Paul Heyman. These brothers-in-arms grew through the ranks, defeating big names such as Kane, Daniel Bryan, Randy Orton, Sheamus, The Big Show, Undertaker, and capturing the Tag Team Championships as well as the United States Championship. Using pack mentality, together they were an unstoppable force, though many team-ups tried. But the Shield may have met their match when Evolution reformed trying to take out the team. Triple H was the acting CFO of the WWE and was butting heads with the Shield. He wanted to do what many others couldn't and break the Shield to pieces. But he needed backup. Batista and Randy Orton joined forces with Triple H, and Evolution was back. The teams would face off twice at Extreme Rules and Payback. Both times the Shield beat out Evolution. Triple H was hell-bent on continuing what he started, but Batista, only being back because of a promise of a title shot, quit the group and the company with a Queen's wave. It seemed like the Shield's biggest threat was gone. With Evolution down a man, they would be on top and stay there. The trio would have the company in their hands for a long time. You know the problem with cohesive groups? They're made up of individuals, and individuals can be bought out with greed. Triple H may not have been able to break the Shield physically, but he had another way. Plan B. Being promised opportunity and fame, Seth Rollins turned on his brothers, beating them down with a chair. Rollins had sold out and joined the Authority at the expense of Reigns and Ambrose. Following the split, Ambrose and Rollins would interfere in each other's matches, notably Ambrose stopping Rollins as he was trying to cash in the Money in the Bank on Cena one night on Raw. They were supposed to have their first match at Battleground, but because of the hatred between the men, the match started with a brawl on the outside and never got started. They then had a lumberjack match at SummerSlam, won by Rollins. They had a rematch the next night on Raw, which ended when Dean Ambrose was held by Kane over a pallet of cinder blocks and Seth Rollins performed a curb stomp on the cement blocks. 1 month later, Ambrose returned to attack Rollins at Night of Champions. The next time they would meet would be at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. Much like the infamous 1998 match, this one started on top of the cell, resulting in dueling falls from the side of the cage to announce tables. This was a shorter cell match because of all the shenanigans in the beginning, but they packed a ton of action in that time, including a very risky elbow from the top rope through Rollins laying on an unstable table on the outside of the ring. Seeking revenge for the attack that kept him out of action for a month, Dean Ambrose introduced cinder blocks to the match, planning on curb stomping Rollins when the lights turned out. A ghost from a lantern appeared. No, I'm not kidding. Bray Wyatt emerged from the apparition, attacking Ambrose and handing the victory over to Rollins, unfortunately tainting a satisfying payoff for the feud. Triple H versus Cactus Jack, No Way Out 2000. Triple H had recently found himself in charge of the company for the first time after marrying Stephanie McMahon. Vince and Shane walked out on the company, leaving the two newlyweds dictators of WWE.
Guess we're gonna have to take things over.
With their army made up of X-Pac and the New Age Outlaws, Road Dogg and Billy Gunn, they would humiliate employees, put their enemies in unfair matches, book themselves in title matches, which resulted in Stephanie McMahon winning the women's title and Triple H beating the Big Show for the WWE title. One night going too far, Triple H tried to break good old JR's arm. Mick Foley, in his Mankind persona, came to make the save. Mankind made it clear that he hated the way they were running the company, putting him in their crosshairs. Spending the next few weeks attacking Mick Foley, eventually putting him in a match against his tag partner, The Rock, in a pink slip on a pole match, where the loser would be fired from the company. Mankind lost the match and was forced to leave. But The Rock, not standing for the injustice, rallied the rest of the locker room to stage a protest to force the reinstatement of Mick Foley. With the threat of half the locker room leaving, Stephanie and Triple H allowed Mick Foley to return to the company. Taking advantage of the situation, Mankind also demanded a WWE title match against Triple H at the Royal Rumble, which would be a street fight. Triple H obliged. Later that night, Triple H tried to rid of Mankind once and for all, busting him wide open with the ring bell and pedigreeing him through the announce table. But it wouldn't keep Foley down. Taking his mask off and performing a familiar hand gesture, Mankind seemed to be devolving into something else as he retaliated against Triple H. On SmackDown, Mankind would make his way down to the ring wearing the same blood-stained shirt from the results of the attack on Monday night. He expressed that he doesn't think Mankind was ready to go to war against the game in a street fight, removing his mask and button-up shirt to become Mick Foley's former persona, Cactus Jack. A character who, like Mankind, can take a lot of damage, but also dish it out, performing in death matches around the world. Cactus Jack was no stranger to weapons, blood, and violence. Triple H selling the reveal like he just saw a ghost really helped create this myth of Cactus Jack in a matter of seconds. This wasn't the fun, caring, humorous Mankind. This was a dangerous individual that would test Triple H like he never had been tested before. If you've never seen this match from the 2000 Royal Rumble, I suggest go watch it as soon as possible. I'm not sure if it's the nostalgia talking or not, but it's pretty damn close to perfect. Great pacing, amazing spots, chairs, handcuffs, wooden pallets, barbed wire 2x4, thumbtacks. It was the first time I've ever seen this type of wrestling. It's a fun style, but hard to pull off a great story in this type of match. They laid this match out expertly. I watched this so many times I wore out the VHS tape. In one of the craziest bumps I've ever seen, Foley, risking his eyesight, took a pedigree face first into a pile of thumbtacks. Triple H took such a beating in this match, he gained a ton of respect from the fans. This was no longer the uptight blue blood, he was a fighting champion. Triple H wanting to finally rid himself of Cactus Jack / Mankind and Mick Foley. He gave the hardcore legend a second chance at the belt at No Way Out, but this time, if Foley lost, he would have to retire. Having his choice of stipulation, Mick Foley wanted Hell in a Cell. Though not as great as their street fight, this match had some memorable moments. The side of the cell breaking when the steel steps were thrown, creating a door. Mick Foley falling off the side of the cell through the announce table, Foley setting the barbed wire 2x4 on fire and hitting Triple H in the head with it, and of course, in another nod to the 1998 cell match with Undertaker, Mick Foley was backdropped on top of the cell, falling through the roof, breaking the ring in a spectacular spot. Even after all that, Foley still rose up to fight, but one pedigree later, he stayed down for the 3 count and was forced into retirement. Until 1 month later when he wrestled in the WrestleMania 16 Fatal 4-Way main event, and in 2004 when he feuded with Randy Orton, and the time he became TNA champion. Well, I guess he was forced into wrestling retirement. Batista versus Triple H, Vengeance 2005. Evolution is a mystery, and so is the reason why WWE thought it was a good idea to originally put Mark Jindrak in the group. A stable that represented the past, Ric Flair, the present, Triple H, and the future of the industry, Batista and Randy Orton. The 4 horsemen of the modern age. They were the top stars on Raw. For nearly 3 years, they were all decorated wrestlers, at one point each member holding gold for the group. In the World Heavyweight Championship, Intercontinental, and Tag titles. Though it always seemed like the main purpose of the group was to keep Triple H as the world champion, consistently helping the game retain the title. Though Orton and Batista were the future, it seemed like the present wanted to hold on for a bit longer and not let his apprentices have a chance to step up. This was proven on Raw after the 2004 SummerSlam. Randy Orton defeated Chris Benoit to become the youngest world champion in WWE history. Instead of embracing that the future was here and being proud that someone under his wing was rising up, Triple H only cared about one thing. He was the man on top. That was his title. After defeating Benoit in a rematch, Evolution gathered in the ring to celebrate. Batista lifted Randy Orton on his shoulders high in the air. Flair clapped along as Triple H gave Orton a big smile and a thumbs up. But like Caesar in the Colosseum, he dropped the thumb downward, signaling to Batista to drop Orton to the mat. The game proceeded to make an example of Orton. No one was going to outshine him. Batista, watching this all happen, had to know that this would be his fate if he ever tried to further his career. With how quickly Triple H would sacrifice a fellow Evolution brother, it was only a matter of time this would happen to him. Only a few months later, things would start to unravel after Survivor Series. When Triple H and Batista would start to argue, eventually Batista attacking Triple H in the locker room, but it turned out this was just a ruse to get Triple H out of defending the World Heavyweight Championship in a cage match. But was it all a ruse, or were there some cracks forming in Evolution? Throughout the weeks, Triple H and Batista would bicker. At one point, Triple H mistakenly hitting Batista over the head with a chair. But surprisingly, things stayed neutral, and it looked like Evolution would stay intact. Even when Batista was added to the Elimination Chamber for the World Heavyweight Championship, he did not turn on Triple H, and helped him eliminate his opponents. Even putting the game on his shoulders while celebrating Triple H regaining the title, like he did when Orton was turned on. Trouble started up again when Batista looked to enter the Royal Rumble to earn a chance to face the champion at WrestleMania. Worried Batista would go after him if that happened, he tried to sway Batista from taking the opportunity. But the animal Batista went into business for himself, entered the Royal Rumble at 28, and won. Meaning he had his choice between challenging for SmackDown's WWE title held by John Bradshaw Layfield or Raw's World Heavyweight Championship held by Triple H. The champion, being in fear that his apprentice would come for his crown, Triple H campaigned for Batista to go to SmackDown to win the WWE title. If both of them had the top titles in the company, Evolution would run both Raw and SmackDown. The moment finally came for Batista to decide. Both Raw and SmackDown general managers had contracts for their respective shows ready for the animal to sign. With Triple H urging him on, it looked as though Batista had decided to head to SmackDown. With all thumbs up, has Triple H's manipulation worked? Then Batista turned his thumb downward. Shades of what happened to Randy Orton. Evolution was over as Batista powerbombed his former mentor through a table. No longer being held back, it was time for Batista to soar and dethrone the Game, which would happen in the main event of WrestleMania 21. The Animal Batista pinned the Game Triple H for the World Heavyweight Championship. Triple H revoked his rematch clause for the next pay-per-view at Backlash, believing that the WrestleMania win was only a fluke, but Batista beat him again. The two would meet for a third time inside Hell in a Cell, a match Triple H asked for after attacking Batista with a sledgehammer and leaving him bloody. The Game had one last chance at attempting to hold back the future. Could Batista do what no other man had done at that point and defeat Triple H inside Hell in a Cell? I never really liked the pairing of Batista and Triple H in any other prior or future matches, but I really love this match. Fun fact, Vengeance 2005 was the first DVD I ever had mailed out to me by Netflix, just to see this match. Showing how his wars with Cactus Jack rubbed off on him, Triple H introduced a steel chair wrapped in barbed wire. You have to give Dave Batista big credit for taking 2 whacks across the back with that thing. You can see little spots of blood forming all over his back where each barb pierced his skin. Then Triple H took a headshot from the barbed wire chair. Of course, there was lots of blood. Batista's bright white elbow pads were stained red by the end of the match. At one point, Triple H planned to jump off the turnbuckle and hit Batista with a chain wrapped around his hand, just for Batista to lift the sledgehammer into Triple H's throat, causing the Game to spit blood out like he does with water during his entrance. Shades of Gangrel. To close the match, Batista lifted Triple H up for the Batista Bomb. Triple H had the sledgehammer in his hand. Like an Old West shootout, who would draw first? Just as Triple H was about to hit Batista in the head with the hammer, he was brought down to the mat for the 1, 2, 3. Ending any hope of recapturing his title or the throne, Evolution was no more. If you haven't seen this one, I highly recommend it. Edge vs. Undertaker, SummerSlam 2008. Hell have no fury like a woman scorned. Edge learned this the hard way at SummerSlam 2008. Though his feud with Undertaker throughout 2008 was great and did become personal at times, it's not the bad blood between competitors that ranks this entry. It's the vengeance of Vicky Guerrero, Edge's lover. Ironically enough, this all started inside another Hell in a Cell match between Undertaker and Batista. A returning Edge disguised as a cameraman attacked the Undertaker, costing him the World Heavyweight Championship. In the next few weeks, we would learn that Edge was dating the general manager of SmackDown, Vicky Guerrero. The ultimate opportunist Edge found himself a sugar mama. Forming the group La Familia, this group had full control over SmackDown, leading Edge to becoming the World Heavyweight Champion when he defeated, with some help, Batista and The Undertaker in a triple threat match. Undertaker would earn the opportunity to face Edge at WrestleMania 24. The match was set: undefeated WrestleMania streak versus undefeated WrestleMania streak. Even with the help of La Familia, Edge could not stop The Undertaker from taking his title at Mania. And the same result next month at Backlash, where Edge had to be carried out in a stretcher after being put in the Undertaker's submission hold, the Hell's Gate. Back when the Hell's Gate would cause people to bleed from their mouth, and then that just stopped one day. Vicky, angry at the outcome, flexed her power, banning the submission move and stripping the Undertaker of the World Heavyweight title. Undertaker and Edge would face off again at Judgment Day for the vacated belt. The Undertaker would win by countout, but Vicky refused to make Taker the champion since the title cannot be won by countout. She would book one more match, Edge versus The Undertaker for the title in a TLC match at One Night Stand. But if The Undertaker failed to capture the belt, he would be forced to retire. This seems to happen a lot on this list, which would come to pass after Undertaker was thrown into a pile of tables from the top of a ladder. A surreal spot coming from the dead man. He was gone. La Familia was free of The Undertaker. With Edge champion again, and with their wedding coming up, Edge and Vicky seemed to be on top of the world. A month later, after a beatdown from Batista, CM Punk would cash in his Money in the Bank contract to steal the belt away from Edge. Upset of the situation, Edge called the wedding off. A vengeful Vicky would book Edge in a match against the Big Show with no disqualification. Seeing the damage that Big Show can inflict on her would-be husband, Vicky stopped the match before Big Show could further harm her former lover. Edge, seeing the benefit of having Vicky by his side rather than an enemy, he re-proposed. The wedding was back on. By next week, the two were married and SmackDown would see the wedding reception, which was interrupted by Edge's opponent for the Great American Bash, the WWE Champion, Triple H. The Game had a video he wanted to share with Vicky Guerrero, a secret recording that caught Edge talking trash about Vicky with the wedding planner, Alicia Fox, ramping up to exchanging massages with each other, and climaxing with the two mauling each other's faces. To say the least, Vicky was outraged. Edge was in trouble, but he had no idea how much trouble. After failing to win the WWE title from Triple H, Edge would beg Vicky for forgiveness. Vicky seemed to accept the apology, but she had something she had to tell Edge. That in her anger, she did something bad. She reinstated The Undertaker. And she also booked Edge in a match against him at SummerSlam, and then delivered the best Hell in a Cell announcement ever.
And it will be Hell in a Cell.
Edge broke Vicky's heart. Now The Undertaker was gonna break Edge's body. A distraught and paranoid Edge sought advice from somebody who knew a thing or two about facing The Undertaker inside the Steel, Mick Foley. The hardcore legend let him know that he would need to bring back the old Edge. He couldn't walk into SummerSlam as the pathetic, complacent version of himself that he had become with the comfort of La Familia having his back. Edge understood.
I understand.
Assaulting Foley in a brutal attack. Edge had snapped. He even turned his back on La Familia, taking out Chavo Guerrero the next week and pushing Vicky out of her wheelchair, screaming in her face that it wasn't The Undertaker that she had to fear. It was him. Edge's downward spiral continued on the last SmackDown before SummerSlam when he kidnapped his wife, taking her out to the arena and tossing her on the ground. Joining her on the floor, Edge verbally assaulted Vicky, rambling on like a madman in a pretty uncomfortable promo. At SummerSlam, Edge walked into the cell with a smile on his face. Edge knew he would be going to hell, but he could take solace in the fact that he would drag The Undertaker with him. With the PG era having just started, this match didn't get as violent as past Hell in a Cells, but it was still pretty entertaining. Since he was inside The Undertaker's match, Edge leaned towards using weapons from his specialty match, TLC, using tables, ladders, and chairs to even out the playing field. Highlights included Edge jumping off a ladder with a steel chair to drive The Undertaker through a table, Undertaker chokeslamming Edge from the top rope to the outside of the ring through two stacked tables, Edge spearing The Undertaker through the cell, leading to the opportunity for Edge to hit Undertaker with another spear through an announce table. Undertaker would hit Edge with a camera, payback for Survivor Series, and hit Edge with his own patented concerto. After a tombstone, The Undertaker pinned Edge 1, 2, 3. The most memorable part of this match didn't come until after the 3 count. Edge was sent to hell for his sins when The Undertaker chokeslammed him off the ladder through the ring canvas, with flames arising out from the hole that was created from Edge's body. I would love to see a backstage segment on how they performed this stunt. It was probably the best example of an Undertaker supernatural spot the company ever did. Number 1. Jey Uso versus Roman Reigns, Hell in a Cell 2020. The rest of the entries on this list were typically the last chapter in a story. This entry was only the beginning. The beginning of one of the greatest stories ever told in WWE. Before the Bloodline, before the Tribal Chief, in the infancy of the 1,316-day title reign. After nearly a decade of not being accepted by the WWE Universe, Roman Reigns turned. No longer would he try to win them over, only focusing on his legacy, on his family's legacy. With Paul Heyman joining his side, Roman Reigns would defeat The Fiend and Braun Strowman to become the WWE Universal Champion at Payback 2020. And so it begins. Jey Uso, brother of Jimmy Uso and cousin of Roman Reigns. Technically, Roman is Jey and Jimmy's uncle, but was added to a match to determine Roman's first challenger, winning to earn the opportunity at Clash of the Champions. A childhood fantasy had become reality. Wrestling each other for the grandest prize in the WWE always seemed like an unreachable goal. Growing up, the two always had a competitive relationship. But this was a new Roman. It was time for him to take his place as the tribal chief of the Anoa'i family. A role Roman was taken very seriously. It was now his job as tribal chief to provide for the family. Not just his immediate family, but the whole of the Anoa'i family. Roman Reigns believed Jey wasn't mature enough to be champion or tribal chief, insulting his cousin, lighting a fire under Jey to prove that he could defeat the champion.
There goes Mr. Main Event, Mr. WrestleMania. You know what they say when they see meals? Which one are you?
Though it wasn't meant to be. During their match at Clash of Champions, Reigns would try to get Jey to acknowledge him as the tribal chief, but the resilient Uso would not. Reigns was dominating his cousin by the end of the match. Fearing for his brother, an injured Jimmy Uso came to the ring to throw in the towel to end the beating. Jey begged his brother not to throw the towel, but after Roman mounted Jey and rained down fists, Jimmy would throw it in, ending the match with a Roman victory. Jimmy would unreluctantly acknowledge Roman as the tribal chief after the match as he held his fallen brother. Not leaving well enough alone, Roman was going to make Jey acknowledge him one way or another, calling Jey out to the ring during SmackDown. He told Jey he would have another shot at the title, but this time with stipulations. Those stipulations being Hell in a Cell. But for the first time in WWE history, that match would be contested under I Quit rules. This match wasn't only going to determine the WWE Universal Champion, but the future of the Anoa'i family. If Jey didn't fall in line after this match, Jey and Jimmy, along with their wives and kids, would be exiled from the family. Would the tribal chief be able to keep his seat at the head of the table? Would Jey Uso end the egotistical bender that his cousin was going through? This match taking place in 2020 meant there was no crowd in the building, which normally was a negative for a match, but with this one kind of helped show the personal nature of the feud. Throughout the match, they would speak out loud, not just telling the story with their actions, but with their words.
It's for that championship or it's from here. In order to keep our family where it needs to be. They good. I do the whipping around here.
Something that may not have came across well with a live crowd. In the early going of the match, Jey did get some offense in, hitting multiple Uso splashes and whipping Reigns with a strap. But it didn't last long. Reigns would gain the upper hand throughout most of the match, beating Jey down so much he wasn't even conscious to answer the ref when asked if he wanted to quit. Reigns would continue the onslaught regardless, hitting his drive-by dropkick into the steel steps, crashing into Jey's head. The ref went to end the match because Jey was in no shape to continue, but Reigns was not going to allow it to end that way.
Your cousin is out! Your cousin is out! You're out! You're out!
Oh, no, my goodness.
More officials entered the cell trying to stop the destruction to no avail. Reigns stood over his cousin, raising the steel steps, ready to crash them down onto his face, when Jay's brother Jimmy rushed to the ring and draped himself over Jay. Begging and pleading for Reigns to just stop, trying to talk sense into the champion, even breaking kayfabe and calling Jay by his real name.
It's Josh. You hear me? This Josh that's laying right here in the middle of this damn ring. Whatever you're going through, man, we can fix this.
It looked as if the words got to Roman, even bringing the tribal chief to tears, expressing that he doesn't even know who he is anymore. This wrestling match just became a Shakespearean play. And like most Shakespearean plays, there wasn't going to be a happy end. Trembling, Reigns took Jimmy's awaiting hand. It looked like the tribal chief has seen the light, until he pulled Jimmy into a guillotine chokehold. Jimmy, who just recently been in surgery and unclear to wrestle, was struggling in the grasp of Reigns. Jimmy desperately reached out to his brother as Jay came to. Seeing Jimmy close to blackening out and unable to break the hold, uttered the words, "I quit." It was a fantastic ending to a match, showing a side of Roman Reigns we had never seen. Soon after, Jay and Jimmy joined sides with Roman Reigns, and the bloodline was born, ushering in the reign of Roman. I promise you an honorable mention with a storyline you won't believe. But first, now that you escaped the cell, I want you to take that like button. I want you to clear off that announce table and lay him right on top. And then I want you to turn around to the sub button and smack him in the head with a ring bell. Place him on top of the like button. Then I want you to slowly climb your way to the top of the cell and make the sign of the cross as you jump off and drive your elbow right through those buttons all the way down to the arena floor. Now, honorable mention. Throughout this list, we've seen some personal stories between wrestlers. We've had group betrayals, family drama, cheating husbands, but out of all of them, the feud for the honorable mention reached heights none of the other entries did. The reason this entry didn't make the official list is that this match did have a Hell in a Cell, but it wasn't a Hell in a Cell match. It was a Kennel from Hell match. If you know, you know. But if you don't know, this match is infamous for being a complete train wreck with a storyline that was a bit far even for the Attitude Era. And that's why I absolutely love it. In 1999, Al Snow started bringing a chihuahua named Pepper down to the ring with him, a replacement for his mannequin head that he used to talk to. After defeating the Big Boss Man at SummerSlam for the Hardcore Championship, the Big Boss Man would kidnap Pepper in exchange for a rematch for the belt. Even though Big Boss Man won the rematch, recapturing the Hardcore title, he broke his promise and kept Pepper anyway. On Raw, Boss Man apologized to Al Snow and told him to come to his hotel room on the next SmackDown and he will give the dog back. At the hotel, there was no sign of the dog, but Boss Man eased Al Snow, telling him the dog was at the groomers. And to apologize for everything, he bought Al a nice dinner. You all can see where this is going. After a few minutes of letting Al eat his meal, Boss Man let him know he was eating 100% grade A pepper. That's right, the Big Boss Man pulled a Scott Tedderman on Al Snow. A somehow more twisted version of Cruella de Vil, the revelation that he just ate his dear friend, Al Snow went insane. Well, more insane for a guy who speaks to mannequin heads. Coming out in his old Avatar gimmick and barking like a dog as if Pepper was communicating through him.
He had to get himself dressed and come out here. Did he not know what he was doing? He lost his dog.
The next week, British Bulldog defeated Big Boss Man for the Hardcore belt. Snow would come out in another old gimmick of his, Leaf Cassidy. For some reason, the Bulldog awarded Snow his newly won Hardcore Championship. Snow challenged the Big Boss Man to a special match at Unforgiven, the first and only time this match would take place. A match with an old-style cage around the ring and a Hell in a Cell on the outside. The only way to win would be to escape both cages. The prototype Punjabi prison. And we all know how well that went. But the cherry on top of it all was that in between the cage and the cell would be a pack of Roman Rottweilers. On paper, this sounds like it could be a unique and fun match. In practice, it was a disaster. For one, those Roman dogs were all on leashes being held by trainers. They were also too busy peeing and crapping everywhere to even care about the competitors in the match. The action in the ring wasn't any better. The only notable spot in the match was a suplex from the top of the cage. At one point, Al Snow loosened the turnbuckle. It never led to anything. My favorite moment in the match was when Boss Man handcuffed Al Snow and Jerry Lawler asked,
Where'd that come from?
And good old JR replied with,
Probably out of your bag.
"Oh, Jerry, you dirty old pervert." The end of the match saw a very slow race to see who can get out of the structure first. Al Snow would beat Big Boss Man to freedom as he tried to escape from the ceiling of the cell. JR mentioned every time somebody goes on top of the cell, something memorable happens.
And every time anybody's ever gone on the top of the Hell in a Cell, something memorable has happened.
Well, not this time. Then the dogs proceeded to slowly chase Boss Man backstage, while one of the trainers fell on top of his dog. If you want some great wrestle crap to watch, this is a good start. I want to thank you all for joining me as we doggy paddle our way through all the bad blood that made up some memorable and sometimes not so memorable Hell in a Cell matches. Now go ahead and leave me a comment about how wrong I was about some things, or how couldn't I not add Undertaker versus Mankind to the list, or how I should have had Sasha Banks versus Bayley, which, come to think about it, I should have had them on there. Well, while you're already down there in the comment section, let me know if you could book any two wrestlers, past or present, dead or alive, in a Hell in a Cell match, who would it be? I can't wait to see your fantasy booking, and I'll catch you later.